Shalom, family. Anyone who has spent even a moderate amount of time reading the Bible would notice that the genealogical lineage set forth from Adam to Christ is patrilineal, declaring the descent from father to son. However, when we get to the book of Matthew, we find 5 unique women who are mentioned alongside the fathers as his ancestors. Matthew 1, 3-6. And Judas begat Pharez, and Zerah of Tamar. And Pharez begat Ezram, and Ezram begat Aram, and Aram begat Amminadab. And Amminadab begat Naasson, and Naasson begat Salmon. And Salmon begat Booz of Rechab, and Booz begat Obed of Ruth, and Obed begat Jesse, and Jesse begat David the king, and David the king begat Solomon of her that had been the wife of Urias, Bathsheba. Matthew 1:16. And Jacob begat Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, who is called Christ. Tamar, Rechab, Ruth, Bathsheba, and Mary. Over the next few nights, we will take a closer look at the narratives of each of these women and how they fit into the Israelite framework. Tonight, we will begin with Tamar by way of Judah. Genesis 38, 1-5. And it came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brethren and turned into a certain Adullamite, whose name was Hirah. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. And he took her, and went in unto her, and she conceived, and bare a son, and he called his name And she conceived again, and bare a son, and she called his name Onan. And she yet again conceived, and bare a son, and called his name Shelah. And he was at Chezib when she bare him. Although some mistake Shua as the wife of Judah, Shua is actually the Canaanite father of Judah's wife. The Easton's Bible Dictionary tells us Shua, a Canaanite whose daughter was married to Judah. The book of Jasher recalls Judah's wife as Eliath. Jasher 4:45-4. And Judah went at that time to Adullam, and he came to a man of Adullam, and his name was Hirah. And Judah saw there the daughter of a man from Canaan, and her name was Eliath, the daughter of Shua. And he took her and came to her, and Eliath bare unto Judah Onan, and Shelah, 3 sons. If you're familiar with the book of Genesis right away, you would know that this marriage posed a problem within the family. Since the time of Abraham, the Hebrews were admonished not to marry Canaanite women. Genesis 24, 1-4. And Abraham was old and well stricken in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. And Abraham said unto his elder servant of his house, that ruled over all that he had, Put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh, and I will make thee swear by the Lord, the God of heaven, and the God of the earth, that thou shalt not take a wife unto my son of the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell, but thou shalt go unto my country and to my kindred, and take a wife unto my son Isaac. Remembering this oath, Abraham's trusted servant will say in Genesis 24, 36-38, And Sarah, my master's wife, bare a son to my master when she was old, and unto him hath he given all that he hath. And my master made me swear, saying, Thou shalt not take a wife to my son of the daughters of the Canaanites, in whose land I dwell. But thou shalt go unto my father's house and to my kindred, and take a wife unto my son. Genesis 38, 6 through 12. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. And Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. And Judah said unto Onan, Go in unto thy brother's wife, and marry her, and raise up a seed to thy brother. And Onan knew that the seed should not be his. And it came to pass, when he went in unto his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord, wherefore he slew him also. Then said Judah to Tamar his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow at thy father's house, till Shelah my son be grown. For he said, Lest peradventure he die also, as his brethren did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. So what exactly happened? Some speculate that Onan sinned by masturbating, but is that really what happened? And why would Judah encourage his son to sleep with his dead brother's wife? This is actually called the kinsman redeemer. Deuteronomy 25, 5 through 6. If brethren dwell together, and one of them die, and have no child, the wife of the dead shall not marry without unto a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go in unto her, and take her to him to wife, and perform the duty of an husband's brother unto her. And it shall be that the firstborn which she beareth shall succeed in the name of his brother which is dead, that his name be not put out of Israel. So why did the Most High see the brother's behavior as wicked? Jasher 45, 24 through 32. And came to his wife Tamar, and she became his wife. And when he came to her, he outwardly destroyed his seed, and his work was evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. And it was after the death of Judah's firstborn, that Judah said unto Onan, Go to thy brother's wife, and marry her as the next of kin, and raise up a seed to thy brother. And Onan took Tamar for a wife, and he came to her. And Onan also did like unto the work of his brother, and his work was evil in the sight of the Lord, and he slew him also. And when Onan died, Judah said unto Tamar, Remain in thy father's house until my son Shelah shall have grown up. And Judah did no more delight in Tamar, to give her to Shelah, for he said, Peradventure he will also die like his brothers. And Tamar rose up and went and remained in her father's house, and Tamar was in her father's house for some time. Both brothers spilled their specimen on the ground. Excuse my language, but ejaculating outside of the woman as a means of preventing pregnancy. Why was this a problem? The Most High said in Genesis 9 and 7, And you be ye fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein. Judah told Tamar to remain a widow at her father's house. According to the Cultural Background Study Bible, remain a widow. A widow without children was a woman without legal, economic, or social status, a woman without a household. Judah here relegates Tamar, through his continuing authority over her, to the protection of her father's household. Let's move forward. Jasher 45, 29 to 32. And at the revolution of the year, Eliath, the wife of Judah, died, and Judah was comforted for his wife. And after the death of Eliath, Judah went up with his friend Hirah to Timnah to shear their sheep. And Tamar heard that Judah had gone up to Timnah to shear the sheep, and that Shelah was grown up, and Judah did not delight in her. And Tamar rose up and put off the garments of her womanhood, and she put a veil upon her, and she entirely covered herself, and she went and sat in the public thoroughfare, which is upon the road to Timnah. Tamar saw that Shelah was now grown, and she was not given to him as a wife. Genesis 38:15-30. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be an harlot, because she had covered her face. And he turned unto her by the way and said, Go to, I pray thee, let me come unto thee. For he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, What wilt thou give me, that thou mayest come in unto me? And he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock. And she said, Wilt thou give me a pledge till you send it? And he said, What pledge shall I give thee? And she said, Thy signet, and thy bracelets, and thy staff that is in thy hand. And he gave it to her, and came in unto her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went away, and laid by her veil from her, and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend the Adulamite to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. Then he asked the men of the place, saying, Where is the harlot that was openly by the wayside? And they said, There was no harlot in this place. And he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. And also the men of the place said, There was no harlot in this place. And Judah said, Let her take it to her, lest we be shamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and thou hast not found her. And it came to pass about 3 months after that, it was told to Judah, saying, Tamar thy daughter-in-law hath played the harlot, and also, behold, she is with child by whoredom. And Judah said, Bring her forth, and let her be burnt. When she was brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, By the man whose these are, am I with child. And she said, Discern. Just think about it for a minute. Please. Whose are these? The signet, and the bracelets, and staff. And Judah acknowledged them, and said, She hath been more righteous than I, because that I gave her not to Shelah my son, and he knew her again no more. And it came to pass in the time of her travail that, behold, twins were in her womb. And it came to pass when she travailed that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, This came out first. And it came to pass as he drew back his hand, that behold, his brother came out. And she said, How hast thou broken forth? This breach be upon thee. Therefore his name was called Pharez. And afterward came out his brother, that had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zerah. Genesis 46:12. And the sons of Judah, and Onan and Shelah, and Pharez and Zerah. But and Onan died in the land of Canaan, and the sons of Pharez were Hezron and Hamul. So, what happened to Shelah? Shelah eventually married a wife of his own. Numbers 26:20. And the sons of Judah after their families were of Shelah, the family of the Shilonites, Pharez, the family of the Pharzites, and Zerah, the family of the Zarhites. According to theological tradition, Tamar was most likely a Canaanite. But was this so? 1 Chronicles 2:3-4 says the sons of Judah, and Onan and Shelah, which 3 were born unto him of the daughter of Shua the Canaanitess. And the firstborn of Judah, was evil in the sight of the Lord, and he slew him. And Tamar, his daughter-in-law, bore him Pharez and Zerah. All the sons of Judah were 5. So Judah had 5 sons. But note, Eliath was reckoned as a Canaanite, but Tamar was not. Remember, Genesis 28:1. And Isaac called Jacob and blessed him, and charged him and said unto him, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Jacob's mother Rebekah would go even further. Jubilees 25:1-3. And in the 2nd year of this week in this Jubilee, Rebekah called Jacob her son, and spake unto him, saying, My son, do not take thee a wife of the daughters of Canaan, as Esau thy brother, who took him 2 wives of the daughters of Canaan. And they have embittered my soul with all their unclean deeds, for all their deeds are fornication and lust, and there is no righteousness with them, for their deeds are evil. And I, my son, love thee exceedingly, and my heart and my affection bless thee every hour of the day and watch of the night. And now, my son, hearken to my voice, and do the will of thy mother, and do not take thee a wife of the daughters of this land, but only of the house of my father and of my father's kindred. Thou wilt take thee a wife of the house of my father, and the Most High God will bless thee, and thy children will be a righteous generation and a holy seed. Jubilees 25:5 says, For I remember, mother, the words of Abraham our father, for he commanded me not to take a wife of the daughters of Canaan, but to take me a wife from the seed of my father's house and from my kindred. Tobit 4:12 says, Beware of all whoredom, my son, and chiefly take a wife of the seed of thy fathers, and take not a strange woman to wife, which is not of thy father's tribe, for we are the children of the prophets, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, my sons, that our fathers from the beginning, even that they all married wives of their own kindred, and were blessed in their children, and their seed shall inherit the land. Well, then who was Tamar? According to the Jewish Encyclopedia, Tamar in rabbinical literature was the daughter of Shem, the son of Noah. Shem was a priest, and when Tamar was charged with fornication, she was condemned to be burned to death in conformity with Leviticus 21:9. Notice, Noah is included in the tribe of their fathers. Therefore, this will include his son Shem, the high priest of the order of Melchizedek. A targum is the Aramaic translation of the scriptures. It forms a part of the Jewish traditional literature, and in its inception is as early as the time of the Second Temple. Targum Jonathan of Genesis 38 says, And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, a daughter of Shem the Great, whose name was Tamar. This is why Judah would say, Bring her forth and let her be burnt. Leviticus 21:9. And the daughter of any priest, if she profane herself by playing the whore, she profaneth her father. She shall be burnt with fire. But wait, Shem lived 12 generations before Judah. So what exactly does this mean? Jasher 45 and 23. And in those days, Judah went to the house of Shem and took Tamar, the daughter of Elam, the son of Shem, for a wife for his firstborn, Like Judah, Tamar was a descendant of Shem's. Genesis 10 and 22. The children of Shem, Elam, and Asher, and Arphaxad, and Lud, and Aram. Tamar was a Shemite, which today we say Semites, just like the Israelites were. She was an Elamite of the tribe of Elam. The Smith's Bible's dictionary says Elamites. This word is found only in Ezra 4:9. The Elamites were the original inhabitants of the country called Elam. They were descendants of Shem and perhaps drew their names from the actual man Elam. When Boaz married Ruth, the elders endorsed the wedding, and they mentioned the offspring of Tamar and Judah. Ruth 4:11 and 12. And all the people that were in the gate and the elders said, "We are witnesses. The Lord make the woman that is come into thy house like Rachel and like Leah, which two did build the house of Israel. And do thy worthily of Ephratah and be famous in Bethlehem. And let thy house be like the house of Pharez, who Tamar bare unto Judah, of the seed which the Lord shall give thee of this young woman." As honorable and numerous as his family was, God blessed Pharez that his family was one of the 5 families to which all the tribes of Judah belong. It's through Judah and Tamar's son, Pharez, that King David would descend, and ultimately our Hebrew Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach. Ruth 4:18 to 22. Now these are the generations of Pharez. Pharez begat Hezron, and Hezron begat Ram, and Ram begat Amminadab, and Amminadab begat Nason, and Nason begat Salmon, and Salmon begat Boaz, and Boaz begat Obed, and Obed begat Jesse, and Jesse begat David. Matthew 1:16. And Jacob begat Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, who is called Christ. I pray that I provided some understanding to the lady Tamar. Shalom.